Did anyone else feel a little underwhelmed with Games Workshop's latest preview at Adepticon? Jay? Oh, that's right. Jay's at Adepticon. It's just me today. Hey, I'm Chris from Lords of War Games and Hobbies. And I figured I didn't want you guys to miss out on any content this week, so I figured I'd just make a couple little solo videos. Probably won't be as long or as fun as normal because we won't have that back and forth discussion. But there was a couple of interesting things that came up this week that I kind of wanted to touch on. One of them was a lot of customers kind of coming in and just being, I'll say, like a little underwhelmed or feeling kind of meh about the latest previews from Games Workshop. And I kind of want to just have a little conversation, touch on why I think that is. Like, because not everyone, you don't always know why you feel that way. You just kind of like watch something and you're like, I'm underwhelmed. I can't put a finger on why, but so let's go over it quickly. What did they actually show off? And I think this kind of gets to the point. We saw probably the biggest thing was that kind of everybody knew was coming. I think this maybe took some of the excitement away was the announcement that fourth edition Age of Sigmar is coming. And they showed off like a really awesome cinematic video. They obviously spent a bunch of money developing, kind of reminiscent of like the Age of Darkness re-release. And also when they put all that money into Octarius or Octavia, whatever it was called for Kill Team. So anytime Games Workshop does something like that, I always think to myself, they really need this to go well. And I'm actually gonna have a second video coming out and where we actually talk about that a little bit, why Games Workshop really needs this fourth edition of Age of Sigmar to really hit home. And so they showed that video off, but obviously they didn't really have any miniatures to show, which I think probably always gets people a little chuffed because we buy models, right? So it's a miniature hobby. It's an aesthetic based thing, and I feel like they should have shown like one or two models, like just give people a little taste. I think that would have been enough to really drive it home, but they didn't. That's okay. Next up, they for 40K, their flagship game, we got a couple of new Chaos Lord models, and I think like this is something that's funny. Like, so I feel like Chaos players are probably like, "Woo! We finally have a Chaos Lord that has options. This is great." We've been waiting how long for this? Like, look at all the Space Marine characters that come out, and we have like a 2002 like Chaos Terminator Lord kit that's like still used a lot because it's the only customizable thing they have. And then they have this like a couple like stock plastic clan pack heroes that are pretty basic. So this is cool. I like the Chaos is getting like, some more love in terms of heroes because they just like dramatically don't have like they don't have much compared to other factions. But for this to be like your only reveal show for 40K, well, obviously the book as well, but people knew that was coming already. Yeah, it's underwhelming, right? Um, Kill Team, probably one of the cooler show off things. I always love the Kill Team reveals because it's always just neat things that you are excited about for 40K. You got your detective dwarves or whatever. They all got their like their detective jackets on or whatever, taking care of business. And then I think my weird personal favorite, the news resculpted Brood Brothers. So it looks like they're using the Cadian bits, and then they have like a new sprue for like the new like sculpts for the Gene Stealer add-ons. But yeah, like aesthetically, they look incredible. Like I love the new Cadian sculpts, and I think this is just adding a plus plus to it because you get like the really awesome Gene Stealer bits, and I think the Gene Stealer range is one of the nicest, coolest things Games Workshop has done in years. It's got that cool classic retro vibe, and it's I don't know, they're just like really interesting models, I think, just in general. What else do we got? Oh, they also for AOS had the final Dawnbringers supplement or whatever. I think it's like 5 or 6 or something like that. Who can keep track? And with it, a really awesome model. You got like so they had like the Croconock or whatever the Chaos Lord on Crocodile thing is, and now you got like the bigger meaner one. It does feel a little Masters of the Universe. Like they got like it's almost like they're zapping them with a gun to like bigger, bigger. We got the bigger crocodile monster. Uh, but it's yeah, like I mean, it's Age of Sigmar ish. Like it's a big, beautiful hero model. Like they always knock those out of the park. So Chaos players are gonna be happy. Very cool. For Old World, we also knew this was coming. They showed off the dwarves. No surprises there, although they did get some new hero models, which look pretty sweet. So pretty much the same treatment they've been giving other factions. I'd say the dwarves even got like a little more love than like something like orcs and goblins that only got one new model. Looks like the dwarves got like three or four. So we'll kind of wait and see which ones are the forgeable resin and if there are any new plastic models. That the Thane that's being carried or whatever looks pretty cool. Honor Guard guy. And then they'll get the same treatment. They'll get an arcane journal and such. So they'll probably be coming in a month or two. They want to keep that stuff rolling because I mean, we talked about this on our other videos. Is Old World is a game that like you like almost can't play like if you want to collect the majority of the factions right now. So I think Games Workshop's really trying to get that stuff out relatively quickly so they can capture the money while the interest is still there for people. And a big surprise, I was actually surprised by this because hot on the tails of the Solar Auxilia release for Age of Darkness, which I was very excited to see. I love that they're fleshing out the game other than Space Marines, giving some players some other factions to play. They are already showing you the hint that the Adeptus Mechanicus is coming in plastic, which is fantastic news for the Age of Darkness players. I really think this adds a lot of legitimacy to the game. Like, one of the things that's kept Age of Darkness like a flash in the pan game, if you will, like it gets these like really hot periods where a ton of people collect it when they do these new editions, because people are really excited to collect Space Marine armies. They do their one Space Marine Legion, and it's almost like all that fun energy for that period leaves their body, and then unless they're like super fans and they want to do that second, third, fourth Legion, which totally people do, and that is a niche market for sure. I'm one of these people. I'm up to my third Legion already. You need other factions to draw interest, right? So, having an Adeptus Mechanicus, like now you might pull a lot more people that play 40k into it that like non-Space Marine factions, like the Solar Auxilia, exact same thing. Like if people like Guard or other kind of Horde armies, maybe they take a look at them, right? So yeah, it's just more opportunities for people to kind of get interested in that game. And I always feel like I have a personal stake because I just really love that IP and I really love that particular game, and I want it to do well. So, and we talked about this as well on the channel. Like in a weird way, like when in our new kind of like uber commercialized world, when new releases aren't coming out for something, there's almost like this baseline assumption that like the product is dead, right? People stop paying attention. And it sucks that it has to be that way. And I'm not saying it is for everybody, but there's only so much space that can be taken up in the marketing world, in the Facebook world, in the Instagram world, in the YouTube world, where like the new stuff is constantly barraged in people's faces. And, we're aesthetic people because we do hobbies. We fall for that stuff, right? So when there's not new stuff coming, a lot of the time attention gets drawn away from things, right? So I'm excited that they've at least announced that there's a third faction coming, and it just adds legitimacy to the game, and it's going to keep people interested and looking forward to playing it. So, do you show a preview like that if you're not planning on releasing it this year? Probably not. So that's pretty cool. We might actually get 2 Age of Darkness factions in the same year this year. That would be awesome. So a lot has been spoken about too about this new format they did for this preview this time around. It was like this, it's almost like they finally started watching other YouTube content and they're like, we should do it like a normal YouTube video thing, like other popular channels where they do like sit and talks, and it'll be this casual format. And yeah, they had like their little chairs and they were like sitting around and like just talking like just a couple of guys. Now, I think the idea is great. Here's where it becomes a problem for Games Workshop and as a company, and I don't know that they can really do anything about this. And I'll explain what I mean. So over the years, Games Workshop has tried to bring in choose some people with personalities to do these like fun videos. Like I'm thinking of like Rob Symes was the first big one with Warhammer TV when they first launched it. You had guys like Duncan Rhodes and Peachy, and although the former two are not people I would like typically say are very like personality driven people. Maybe Peachy more so than Duncan. Um, I think the lessons they learned because those people left the company and are now like successful YouTubers and are kind of making money and driving things on their own. I think sometimes the Games Workshop learned the wrong lesson from that. The lesson I think they learned was we got burned 3 times, um, and we need to make sure that the people we choose to kind of have the spotlight going forward um, won't do that to us or in some weird way. Like they might not even have said that out loud, but like what I mean by that is it seems like their strategy is to, and this keep in mind, this is not everybody. I'm not even that personable, and I don't think like I'm necessarily like a personality for this type of format. I just do it anyways because I have the business. But I think not everybody's meant for being in front of the camera and doing these sorts of things in exciting ways. And I think they're like choosing people on purpose or putting people in front that aren't necessarily the best for that type of thing. So like a sit and talk thing would be really interesting with the right people, maybe really personable people. But I think if you don't choose the right people, it kind of just comes across as like a little flat, right? So I think people are feeling that. Because and like I said, I think they're doing that because they feel they got burned by those other people that have left and been successful since then. And I don't. The problem is I don't agree with that. It's like instead of shooting for the moon and having like it work out for you and then like having to move on, you're like aiming way lower so that you can't be burned, but then you never get the success either. It's kind of a weird thing, right? Like, so what if someone becomes like famous for, while working for Games Workshop for a couple of years and then moves on? They gave you a couple of great years, right? And there's no reason that relationship can't end well. But I honestly do think it's a bit of this like corporate. They're kind of stuck, right? Like, they don't want it, so they're not going to do it, and that's that, right? Which means that at the end of the day, like the online world will always be shaped by very personable, independent people that are kind of covering their stuff, right? That's what they've kind of sacrificed by doing that. They've sacrificed that. They've given that space up for that, which is fine. And last but not least, I just want to hit on, so why did the preview feel a little underwhelming? I think this is a little bit, it reminds me of like, it's a silly example, but you play any racing games, you can basically like either play, like obviously they're single player, you can do like your personal best, and then you can like race yourself. It's like a ghost. And I remember in Mario Kart it was like Ghost Track, like you're literally racing a ghost version of yourself. It feel like obviously Games Workshop races themselves every year, right? So they're competing with whatever they did last year, they're competing with whatever they did last quarter, and that mattered to them in a sense of like the money they were making. And if you worked for them, it mattered. And when you own a store, let me tell you, it matters what products are coming out. But it never necessarily like visually mattered to customers, if you want to say it like that, in a way that was like really noticeable until they started doing these big previews, right? Because they put a lot of time and effort into showing off what's coming up. Inevitably, you do enough of these, you have a track record, and there's expectations built up about what these are and what they should be and what things you should see in them. And, people are going to make comparisons, right? So this particular one, people will look and say, I was underwhelmed because they showed off like 4 models, basically. Like, most of the things they showed off were either a trailer to something else or like a mini for something. And we didn't see any new armies really. We didn't see any. What was it's like, what was the big thing? The big thing, obviously, they wanted to take away was, new Age of Sigmar is coming out. Okay, cool. But like I said, aesthetics, we didn't see any models. We just have kind of like, I guess if you're excited, but you're like not excited for anything in particular physical yet, right? So I think that was the biggest thing, is like they have this track record now. We've had some crazy good previews. This wasn't one of them, right? Let's be real. It wasn't one of them. And that's going to be the thing they fight every time, right? Is like how do they make these previews awesome every time? I don't know that they can. Um, but I think they should aim for some sort of like even keeled approach. Like they should probably want to try to keep it as even as possible so that that feeling doesn't sway. Because I think when you have highs and lows like that, that's when it can lead to these kind of like walk away moments where you're like, oh, I just watched that for an hour and I'm just like kind of like, why did I do that, right? Like, and you don't want people to feel that way, right? So, yeah. Well, what did you think about the preview? Do you like the new format? Do you think they showed off enough stuff? And what out of the things you saw, what are the things you're looking forward to the most? Hopefully you enjoyed this Chris talks by himself for 10 minutes video. I know it doesn't fill in for the real thing, but at least you got something this week. Thanks for sticking with us, guys. We appreciate it. And I hope for those of you that went to Adepticon this weekend, you had a good time. And like and subscribe if you liked the video. And check out the one I'm going to post also about Age of Sigmar and what we need to see from that game. Take care, guys. Until next time. Cheers.